Dear friends, dear colleagues, let us start the parallel section number 2. And we have 4 presentations, 3 here in the audience, and the third and the fourth one online, as I was told by organizers. And the first presenter, the first speaker, is Peter Jones, and he will give us a talk presenting a universal and simple conceptual workbench to situate and encompass complexity. So it's a very interesting session because social complexity is the paradigmal example of complexity itself. I'm looking forward for your presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much for that introduction. It's amazing to be here. I just can't say enough about that. I'd like to share what I believe is a very simple and yet powerful model that can actually speak to the topics yesterday and this morning as well, and policy. Just listening to Nigel's keynote, I was thinking about all parliamentary advisory groups and the actual number of those as well, the duplication. I'm a community nurse, mental health nurse by background. I have a BA Honours in Philosophy and Computer Science and an MRes in e-research from Lancaster University. I am semi-retired now, but keeping busy writing and studying this conceptual framework. The name Hodges model, it is eponymous. Brian Hodges was a senior lecturer at Manchester Metropolitan University, and what I'd like to do is introduce you to some of the background of the model, its structure and content, and also relate this to complexity. I'm quite happy to make the slides available. 1 or 2 of them may be a little dense, a lot of content. I'll try to indicate the applications of the model. And for me, this is about passing an odd-shaped baton to the future generation, because this model is very useful to socialize new students into educational disciplines and professions. And with AI now, we need that more than ever. I'll also signpost to some resources, including actually a blog post that provides some background to Brian's career and what prompted him to create the model. Brian sadly did pass away in 2022. I attended his funeral in Sheffield, UK. He lived in Totley, which was nearby. Brian trained in learning disability nursing, and he actually taught across all nursing courses, mental health, district nursing, health visiting as well. The model, as I mentioned, is cross-curricular, and it is applicable across disciplines, social work, psychology. So at a university, if a new cohort of students are in Healthcare 101, this would be an excellent introduction for them. 4 original purposes include curriculum design planning, because at the time Brian created the model, nursing was not a undergraduate discipline. It was schools of nursing in the UK, and it was in 2000 that nurse education was university-based. So curriculum design was a key. And also on the mental health and the learning disability side, the importance of the theory-practice gap that is still a problem, a challenge today. We need our practitioners to be reflective, and all learners now still need to be critical thinkers. It's still a major issue within education. In care, we need to be holistic in our approach. Nigel, I think, mentioned bandwidth this morning, and of course that's quite a feature of technology. But here we've got conceptual, holistic bandwidth through using Hodge's model. It can help achieve parity of esteem. So often people are treated as a diagnosis, the diagnosis in bed X, Y, Z, and the mental health, emotional care can be neglected. And there are issues of parity of esteem elsewhere, no doubt. SMI, that is severely mentally ill, where because of the medication, it's very important that people's physical and mental health is integrated. And it goes without saying, within health, person-centeredness. At the moment in the UK, there's been quite a lot of criticism around the quality of care in midwifery. And it does sound like the patient, the carers, relatives, they're not being listened to. So person-centeredness is key. Usually to teach the model, I use guided discovery, a Socratic dialogue. So essentially, I don't teach the model. The students actually discover the model for themselves, and that really is powerful learning, actually. Brian, usually it's quite a pedantic process. It's a great workshop, actually. But Brian would ask a series of questions. Who do we care for? What do we do for them to deliver that care? And then what knowledge and skills do we need? And as you'll appreciate, these questions apply across the board, basically. And in we, again, it's inclusive, even to that duty of care we have to each other and the planet. So let's quickly run through the model. So who do we care for? Just to say, the full title of Hodge's model is Hodge's Health Career Care Domains Model. And here, the phrase health career refers to life chances. The life chances we experience, that influences obviously the health career that we experience. And again, referring to Nigel's presentation, he mentioned obesity, and we can differentiate time-wise between a person's chronological age and the pathological age as well. And care domains was introduced into the title for reasons that will be obvious, but health career tended to be equated with employment and jobs, so we added care domains in. So who do we care for? First and foremost, individual. And already at the conference, we've heard about this individual group aspect. Then what types of things do we do in healthcare? Well, we do things that are mechanistic. We use x-rays, we stick needles in people still, we give drugs, we assess things like gait, all those blood pressure, temperature, all those physical constants. So we have physical care. Then equally we have what is humanistic, and this basically gives us the axes of Hodge's model. If you're considering the individual, and the individual is key because it's the individual who is consenting to having those procedures done on them, or it is their guardian who is giving that consent on, say, a child's behalf, or someone who lacks mental capacity. So when we say the sciences, we really mean all the sciences. If you think of health, technology, and materials now, things that are going in a person's body. So, and also the built environment, the home, and the impact to follow of climate change, our response to heat. On the humanistic individual side, we're concerned with the intra and the interpersonal. So essentially here we've got the Cartesian divide between mind and body. That really is quite a legacy concerned with the whole edifice of science. Then Brian considered the humanistic and group, so the family, culture, ethnicity. There is the sense of individual identity, but what of cultural identity that really does need to be acknowledged. And then where you've got a group and mechanistic in health, and here we're all playing roles today. Currently I'm a speaker representing ideas. We're within an institution, organizations, policy was mentioned this morning, rules, the law, police, enforcement, conflict between nation states, human rights. So all of these things. And there is sort of like a chiasmus between and across the model. We can think of the public's understanding of the sciences, for example, and what is psychopolitical, for example. In my role as a community mental health nurse, obviously I'm concerned with the interpersonal and that person's safety. But at times people may need to be admitted into hospital using the law. So, and then of course all this crucially can be embedded within the spiritual. Some key messages: the model is situated. There is such a thing as the conceptually oriented curriculum as well. The model can act as a template before you scope a project. I believe that the model is philosophically agnostic in that it can take on board whatever your philosophical perspective. Whether it's culturally agnostic is another question. The model is very good in terms of informational concepts, and there is a separate paper concerning that, humans, information and science. And despite the boxes associated with Hodge's model and the domains, integration really is key. So it's as if once we've done our assessment, we want to erase those boxes. So Hodge's model can be thought of as all these things, a memory jogger, very useful in psychotherapy for case formulation, and also as a cognitive periplus. The ancient mariners, all they had to go on was the coastline. They couldn't see what was inland, and that was the basis of the initial maps. And this is what our learners do as they pick up a new vocabulary and are socialized into that professional group. More recently, I've been looking at relational spaces, and I need help with this as a non-mathematician. So this model really is a gyroscope of choice. It's not the only tool, but it's, as I say, a simple and powerful one. This is the dense slide, sorry, but the numbers here refer to references at the end concerning reading that I've done in preparation for this conference and presentation. As you can see, we can consider all of the domains as dynamic. Spirituality itself is also dynamic as it follows us on our life journey. If you imagine the Lorentz butterfly superimposed on Hodge's model, and you put two variables, parameters close together, you can soon appreciate as those variables track around that butterfly diagram, how they end up being divergent, for example. Oh, sorry. Not so long to go now. So a key thing with technology is affordances, other facilities that technology provides for us. And Hodge's model provides inter, multi, and transdisciplinary bridges. So we need to encourage our learners to actually take a walk across what is psychophysical, psychosomatic, psychosocial, and this is what Hodge's model can do. Subjectivity has been mentioned, and objectivity at the conference. We tend to equate the humanities more with what is qualitative. So some of the underpinnings for Hodge's model, which I've attended 2 workshops in Sweden on conceptual spaces, the work of Professor Peter Godenfors. There's another book accompanying this one. And also within education, Mayer and Land's threshold concepts. There's 21st century purposes as well, including the determinants of health, all of them. And we can also equate the model with the ISO standard concerning plan, do, act, and check. There is a symmetry across with the care domains. And as I mentioned, help needed. I'm trying to look at Hodge's model as a mathematical object, and yet I am definitely not a mathematician. 2 references here that are informing my thinking at the moment, and specifically whether I can attract the attention of students, PhD students. I do wonder whether it may be possible to apply category theory to some of the elements of Hodge's model, because we can abstract away a lot of the detail. So many thanks. There's a blog called Welcome to the Quad, and there's a bibliography there in the sidebar. And thanks ever so much for your time and being able to share this with you. Thank you.
Or we will move to another speaker. Thank you, Harvey. There is no question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you. Okay, next speaker is Nisrine Jarmoune. She has his background in management studies and want to analyze the complex behavior of individuals, like sustainable consumption, and in the context of the individuation theory of Gilles Deleuze, well-known French philosopher, postmodernist, post-structuralist. So the floor is yours. Please, Nisrine.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Elena. Hi, everyone. So to get me started, I will dive straight to the subject of this conference, which is the notion of complexity. I want to first make a crucial distinction regarding the definition of this notion. Do you hear me well? Okay. So I will take an example of a structure. So I heard a lot of people talking about structure, so I decided to take this example. So if this structure is determined in a causal way, it may be non-linear, it may be asymmetric, it may be difficult to predict or complicated to predict, but my point is that this is not synonymous of complexity, because when something is determined causally, and we find the difficulty to predict it, this is a sign that we are facing an epistemological problem. So it has to do with epistemology and not with the nature or the ontological nature of the structure itself. And complexity actually requires spontaneity. I state that spontaneity implies complexity, and complexity is supposes spontaneity. So if there is not spontaneity, there will not be complexity. And then there is a conception. So there is a conception that seems to me quite widespread, and Helena actually mentioned it yesterday, and she specified that this conception is also considered by the Russian school. Doesn't work. Okay, thank you. And this conception is the systematism. Okay. Indeed, it considers that a behavior is like a system whose trajectory falls into an attractor. So when the system is unstable, it falls directly into this attractor as a parameter of the environment. But the problem of this conception is that it only considers the environment as a domain of reality, and it doesn't consider the individual. So the system must be, or there must be two domains of reality that participate to the individuation of a behavior, an individual and an environment. That's my definition of spontaneism or spontaneous determinism. To keep it short, there is another conception that I want to point out, which is causal determinism. And I want to point it out actually to extract a condition from it, a condition of complexity and of spontaneity from it. So when I say causal determinism, I am not talking exactly about causality, because I state that causal determinism has to do with temporality rather than causality. And to make it more clear, causal determinism stipulates that a variable or a variation determines another effect or another event, but in a lapse of time. And this statement could be easily contested by the famous E = mc² of Einstein, and also by Russell. So Russell had stated, Russell had already challenged this conception in his famous paradox dated in 1913. He argued that if we consider that a variable determines an event, but within a lapse of time, even a very small one, then the variable can no longer be determined by those variables. Like there must be other events that could occur between this determination. So, if systematism is philosophically wrong because the behavior is not spontaneous, I see that causal determinism is ontologically wrong and could be, easily contested. I wish to avoid these two unfortunate conceptions of behavior, to avoid systematism and causal determinism. This is what I propose: that the variations that determine the events of the behavior, of course, must be characteristic of both the environment and the individual. So I said this to bring up spontaneity. There must be an individual and an environment. This is the first statement. And then they must be characteristic. And for them to be characteristic of an individual and an environment, they must be vectorial. Meaning having a sense, having a direction, and having a value. And then to avoid causal determinism, the determination must be in present. So for them to be in present, the variations or the variables must be undeterminate. And for them to be undeterminate, they must be non-substantial. So this is a small sketch of how I visualize variations. Variations must be vectorial, so this is the illustration in the left. And then they must exist in a manifold, which is the illustration in the right. It would be even more relevant to conceive these variations as the differentials dx and dy, because dx and dy are not determined. So they would illustrate our variations, and then the event that they determine is dx in dy. Regarding the light cone, each mutual determination, there are many determinations that occur, and each one of them form, a sheaf that literally, creates these curvates or curves, the manifold and the space. So one thing that is crucial about this light cone is the equation that we invoked earlier, which is E equal mc squared, where E is the intensity. Unfortunately, Einstein didn't mark or represent it with I, it's represented with E. And then we have the M of mass or substantiality. And then we have the C squared, representing the speed of the determinations. We have determinations that happen in the velocity or in the celerity of light. And then, as a consequence of this rapid or very speed determinations, we have the phenomenon of substantialization or actualization, if we borrow the term of Gilles Deleuze. Okay, so here we have events that were actualized. Since they actualize simultaneously, they form a sheaf, which is obviously compact. And since they are actualized in a topological space, then necessarily all the events are topologically equivalent. Although the events do not derive from one another, but there is relations between them, relations that are dictated by the space where they are, and those relations form an abelian group or a groupoid. I don't know if you are familiar with the notion of the groupoid of Grothendieck. And curiously, this groupoid and this algebraic information is exactly sense of a behavior. Like sense of a behavior is the relations that are formed by those events. And then there is this factor that literally transports the algebraic information from the sheaf base to the cellular base. How does this occur? Quantum entanglement. So briefly, the quantum structure, because the sheaf is a quantum structure since it was actualized in a field that become intensive due to the speed of the determinations, the quantum structure that was just actualized actually determine another structure that exists in the cellular base. And we call this in biological terms biogenetics. Like we say that this structure is programmed. The structures are the structure is programmed biogenetically, but in fact there exists already a priori correlation between the two structures. So we have the information in the sheaf that because of this correlation, automatically, this is not a very nice term, goes to the other structure, which is quantum, of course. Quantum. And then, here, the start of the expression of sense. The idea of this diapositive is that the cells must be available, and for them to be available, they must be the spins of the quantum system must be how to call it? I don't know how we call it in English, but dans un état singulier. Okay. We will deport ourselves a little bit to the ideological thinking. So if we reason ideologically instead of ontologically, each sense of a behavior which is carried by a sheaf cannot be ambiguous. It's either we have, for example, a responsible behavior or we don't have a responsible behavior. There's a common misconception, for example, we say, I am a little bit responsible. This is not true. At least if we follow this conception, either you're responsible or not. And the difference would be that are you responsible towards all resources or not? And then, for example, So on this point, I can't explain to you very precisely why we are only going to consider a square structure and a triangle structure, but the reason is topologically, and I will skip it to save time. Okay, this is very crucial, I think. So when the structure of the sheaf that carries sense of the sense of the behavior is quaternary, so meaning like a square, then actually the sense of behavior is structured also by 4 affections. For example, here we have, I've studied the responsible consumption behavior, and I've found out that it can be structured through 3 assemblages. And on the other hand, of course, if the structure of the sheaf is ternary, then the structure of sense it carries is structured by 3 affections, excluding will. Actually, will is the affection that either is present when it's a quaternary structure or not present when it's a how it's called? Ternary structure. And yesterday, Mr. Turchin spoke about, for example, competitiveness. So if we want to tackle competitive behavior, we would map the affections that structure it, competitiveness and will, eventually, and then we track the other 2, for example, following literature. And then I think the final one, here, actually, this is the dialectical logic. You know, a behavior dialogues with an institution. This is something that has to do also with ontology, but I don't have time to show it, because behavior, when it désindividué, se désindividue dans un environnement, et donc on a à nouveau un changement du décor virtuel. And the vectors or the variations that exist, that are non-substantial and vectorial, they change again. So they change with each behavior. So, you know, we have a behavior, environment, institution, there's a dialogue there, and this allows us as managers, for example, to tackle or to institutionalize the behavior. So first we have to do an ontological work, an ideological work to see what are the affections that structure it, and then institutionalization. This is it. And finally, my conclusion is that only a behavior is spontaneous, and then, because complexity is an implication of spontaneity, therefore only a behavior is complex. Thank you.
So much, Nisrine. So fascinating combination of mathematical topology and some philosophical ideas of Leibniz and Gilles Deleuze, the metaphor of rhizoma. So if you have any questions, please ask. I address to audience. No question. May I ask my question, Nisrine? You name 2 types of determinism. One is causal determinism and the other spontaneous determinism. Can they call this spontaneity, which is one of the main traits of self-organization, as indeterminism? Is it indeterminism? According to Ilya Prigozhin, for example, he named it indeterminism.
Variations are indeterminate. Variations are indeterminate, but there is a determination that is happening. So this can't be undeterminism. And I see that there is a contrast between causal determinism and presentism on the notion of temporality, and then there is a contrast between systematism and spontaneism. Did I answer your question?
Okay. And another small question. Can they interpret this rhizoma behavior, like metaphor, like a description of human behavior, complex behavior, as like a random walk? Is it like a random walk?
Yes.
Just 3 bullets to... Sorry? Okay.
So Deleuze talks about rhizome as a form of organization because he contrasts 2 forms of organization, the rhizome and then the tree. Because the tree is hierarchic, whether the rhizome is unpredictable. Because behaviors are spontaneous, then you can't predict them, then the organization of them would be in the form of a rhizome and not.
Thank you, Nisrine, once again. And now, last but not the least, for our panel section 2 is the talk by our colleague Lionel Scotto d'Apollinaria. Recently he has published a book on climate controversies and Anthropocene, and as he named his area of specialization, participatory science. He is director of the UNESCO chair on Edgar Morin's complexity, and also the member of collegiate leadership of the GIS, it means Scientific Interest Group, Democracy and Participation. Please, Lionel, the floor is yours. Yeah. You have 15 minutes, maybe.
Un petit thé ou un café, monsieur?
C'est bien ici, on voit les anciens, on parle. Là, eh ben ma foi, un café, ouais. Ça m'évitera de prendre le camion. Pourquoi vous faites ça, madame? Pour la fraternité. Oh, mais c'est du bonheur. Oh non, ma chérie, une fois que j'ai mangé mon repas, je vais marcher vers la plage. Ah ouais? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a là, Claudie?
So thank you. Good morning, everybody. You can stop the film, please. Yeah, and put the PowerPoint. Is it possible? Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Before I begin, I would like to present my warmest thanks to the committee organization. I don't know where is Nicolas. Nicolas, a big up for you. And you have just seen 1 minute of the film Chronicle of Fraternity, an event organized in Montpellier in 2025. And so I'm going to present you a programmatic participatory action research framework, the Oasis of Fraternity, and suggest through the empirical insights that it has a potential to make complex thinking actionable in real life. Here you can read the plan, and the main objective of my presentation is to illustrate an example of the complexity of praxis and the praxis of complexity. The complexity of praxis and the praxis of complexity. From the conceptualization and implementation of our participatory action research device from the street to the indoor workshop, the construction of the data, and the first results. So, what is the problem statement? We are living through a dark historical period of polycrisis defined by global instability. escalating armed conflicts, the rise of extremism, the crumbling of democratic and environmental foundations are posing a great threat to social cohesion. In this context, Edgar Morin told us, let us fraternize in uncertainty. And invite us to create Oasis of Fraternity, to confront the ethical, social, political, environmental regressions that mark this critical turning point in human history. So, we consider fraternity to be a key indicator for analyzing social, political, democratic disintegration, or more globally, the unraveling of societies. What I am going to present to you is a particularly innovative approach to both analyzing and developing emancipatory goals. In this context, fraternity is not be understood as a fixed ideal, but as a complex and vital analytical lens to observe and foster how social bonds are formed, negotiated, and failed in everyday interactions. That represent a fantastic opportunity, offering a way to operationalize complex thinking and to assess its impacts. As you know, the social sciences struggle to grasp complexity of public crises, and more generally, we face challenges in addressing Morin's concept of ecology of action and providing adequate analytical frameworks. Furthermore, complex thinking is often criticized for being too vague or difficult to test empirically, while participatory action research is seen as ever lacking scientific rigor or being overly instrumental. My presentation addresses this tension by proposing a combined methodological framework. And this overview establishes the conceptual pillars of our study. It maps out the theoretical landscape ranging from the roots of institutional trust to the ethical and scientific challenges of participatory action research. I won't go into detail, you can find it in our paper. So, I'm going to present you the project which is deeply in interdisciplinarity. And it's inspired by Edgar Morin and also Elisabeth Senegas, and it's grounded in a praxeological approach built along the way, chemin faisant, along the way. And it's based on a bricolage, on tinkering. It's very important for us. On this slide, a synthesis of a participatory action research device, conceptualization. I repeat, I don't enter into the detail. So, you can see the project unfolding step by step, chemin faisant. We distinguish between what we do in the front stage, that is in the street or during the participatory workshops, and the backstage, where we process and analyze the data. And now, let's dive into an example. I choose the 2nd Street in October last year. Here, we are in October in Montpellier. Concretely, we put our table and chairs and our barnum in street. It was the first images you saw in the introduction of my presentation, the film Chronicle of Fraternity. First, we share a distribution of meal with le Resto du Cœur and meet and talked with people. Let me tell you about Marie Delis. She is a young artist. We met back at the launch in June 2025, who jumped right into the project with us. Together, we designed a participatory art device with tool and with a wool yarn, a metaphor of human relationship. It acts as a very relevant intermediation tool to connect people, particularly for those who don't speak French. I designed another participatory tool, Venez décrocher la lune, come and catch the moon, if you want. People can write down or simply talk about their dreams, their perspectives, and whatever else is on the mind, on the heart. If you look at the right side, on the second row, you see Catherine. Catherine is a woman with curly white hair. We met her during the street launch, and she's actually offered to run an open discussion workshop right there in the street. I really want to highlight this because it shows how the project takes shape organically, built step by step with the people we meet. For instance, another example, we also meet another Catherine and Didier, and at the same launch in June 2025, and they decide to organize a folk dance workshop in the street. And if you look at the black and white picture, in the top right corner, you can see a woman from behind. That is Olga. Olga is an Ukrainian refugee living in a working-class neighborhood. She and her daughter stayed with us the entire day. We had a long chat about her life, about everything, about nothing. We also met Thomas, a 22 years old homeless. Both Thomas and Olga have gotten involved in the project. Even thought it can be really difficult to keep in touch with them. So, now, the street for us is treated as a social laboratory where fraternity can emerge, but also where exclusion can be observed. The project is conceptualized in a way that allows citizens' expectation to emerge. In this sense, it's not initially institutionalized. And we are trying to analyze the transformative impact on the actor or on the organization. And also, we are analyzing fraternity in the making, in context, in real life. So, the question is now, how do we take all those experiences from the street and the indoor participatory workshop and turn them into structured data? We do not seek to control observational situation. However, no matter what happens, we are always able to stay in control and how we build our data and adapt to any situation. Working with the embedded approach, we decide, for example, to create an ethogram, you will see after, based on the October event. I want to highlight an important point about our role as researcher. We leave the project completely open to any kind of emergence. Let me give two examples. First, many organizations at the national level actually reached out to join the project. This led to creation of a new collective called Convergence Citoyenne. The second example is that we treat our own team, the researcher and participants, as a living laboratory of interdisciplinarity in context. We film our seminar, includes this in our report, so we can step back and analyze how our different academic backgrounds or on our epistemologies actually interact with each other, or sometimes how they don't. So, I hope you want to see our initial results. I will now illustrate a few results for you without going too much into the details. The goal is to demonstrate our ability to produce various types of data in the scope of our analysis. For example, this is a sensitive mapping during the participatory workshop in February. Allows us to highlight the fact that the fraternity is distributed very heterogeneously at the scale of the city of Montpellier. Another example, using various sources, we also build a lexical map of the use and perception of fraternity. Yeah, I'm a bit quick, but continuing to illustrate our findings, the device functions as a multi-level attractor. Here, on one hand, an attractor for different organizations and collectives, and here you can see the mapping, the first mapping of a convergence citoyenne. On the other hand, it acts also as a physical attractor when we are out on the street. This heterogram we built from our video footage lets us analyze how people move and exactly how they interact with our device in the street. Of course, this is a very exploratory approach. So, I understand you might be eager and hungry also. Yes, you were a bit late. And to get to the final results, my main goal today was really to illustrate our methodology first. And to the discussion and to the conclusion, the projects are still at an exploratory stage. Numerous limitations, you have on the slide, are emerging, and we do not yet have sufficient hindsight to evaluate the scope of our initiative across the research, across the action, the participation, all these kind of dimensions. But the major outcome for the moment is that the framework is operational and generates data in any situation, while letting the field speak for itself along the way, chemin faisant. In conclusion, the participatory action research, Oasis of Fraternity, Oasis of Fraternité in French, marks an epistemological, perhaps, and programmatic shift by turning complexity into a performative research process. And more than a method, it acts as an artifact attractor that reveals, produces, and strengthens fraternity as a dynamic social reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, again. Next talk is from our colleagues from Portugal, Dr. Harvey Spencer Sánchez-Restrepo works at the intersection of education, complexity science, and mathematical modeling. He holds a PhD in complexity sciences from the University of Lisbon and another PhD in geostatistics from the National University of Mexico. Currently, he serves as president of the Latin American Agency for Evaluation and Policy, as well as senior technical advisor to UNESCO in Latin America Laboratory for Quality of Education. Please, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes to present your views and the views of your group of research. Ms. Harvey.
Yeah, thank you so much. Are you listening to me?
Yes, we hear you.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity. As we are running late, I will try to explain myself on a speed. So when we talk about topological patterns of academic success, we try to understand what's happening for explaining what is learning poverty and what kind of variables and factors are surrounding learning poverty, and how a few students in a country, in a state, or all around the world take the opportunity to succeed, even if they suffer the worst conditions in a socioeconomic way or any other deprivations, variables around their learning succeed. So I have prepared this for you. So just for support, I would like to take these 7 points, one slide for each. That is learning poverty, academic resilience, the material and methods, because this is the fundamental thing of this is a theoretical approach. But we have also a quantitative approach made in one state in Mexico called Nuevo León. And after that, to show you the model. So for starting, let me draw your attention with learning poverty. In the history of mankind, mostly is based on social relations caused by 2 huge forces. First of all, randomness. You know, nobody known at least has choose in the history the place to be born. But after be born, immediately determinism starts to explain all the path that a person follows across their entire life. In particular, in Latin America, the gaps in opportunities for well-being is associated with postal code, and this surpasses even the historical discrimination based on physical or genetic traits. Some educational systems, most of them, not only reproduce social inequalities, but even deepen them, turning their mission into a tremendous social deception. Undoubtedly, economic determinism is the worst aspect of our society. Why do I say that? Well, education is the base for equality, and most of the social contracts are based on this. But on the contrary, almost 300 million children all around the world are not even in school, but most of these children inside of schools are not learning the minimum. Even they are not learning to read. So these are official data coming from UNESCO, from the United Nations, and all these kind of large scale assessments. And the question is how to explain this phenomenon that is named learning poverty, that is defined as to being unable to read and understand a simple text. So if we accept that reading is a gateway for learning, if we accept that children who don't read at the end of basic education usually fail to master reading later, if we know that reading is a student gateway to learning in other areas, and that reading proficiency can serve as a proxy for foundational learning in other subjects, it's very easy to study with one single measure or a complex measurement how learning poverty is evolving across the world. So the model that we have an agreement all around the world is that if you have, for example, 10 children here, and 80% of these children are in the school and 20% are out of school, we can consider that all these 20% of not going to the school are non-proficient. It's really easy to show that. But the rest of the 80% going to the school, maybe in a hypothetical case, we have 6 children that are 70% of these pupils to be reading proficiently, and 25% or 2 children that are not proficient. So, in general, the idea is that we have 60% of not learning poor and 40% of learning poor. Okay? This is the main idea, and it's a combined measure of schooling and learning. When this is the formal equation, it's just splitting these components and saying that learning poverty at some point in the time, at some point in the territory, can be measured as 2 components. Children going to the school and the portion of them that are deprived, and the other one that are not going to the school, so you can add as we can see. What is academic resilience? Well, the concept of resilience appears to have its conceptual roots in social psychology, and it's like an explanation for why some people achieve positive outcomes in their development of emotional or social stability, despite continuous exposure to significant stress or adversity. Most recent definitions try to say that resilience is a stable personal trait or a characteristic possessed by specific individuals who achieve good performance under pressure. And in quantitative research, academic resilience can also be understood as the greater likelihood of success in school and other life achievements despite environmental adversities caused by early traits, conditions, and experiences. So here we have the questions regarding academic resilience. Do you think that academic resilience is primarily an individual or social trait? The second question, do you think academic resilience is positive or a negative trait? So these questions are fundamental for all policy and educational systems because one part or one portion of policymakers are trying to understand resilience for increasing students that are resilient. But a small portion of policymakers are understanding that maybe academic resilience or resilience in general could be not just positive, and that maybe it might be unsustainable. And that's why we're looking for in this complex network system that we develop in this model. So material and methods. I will not remain here, but we use a very good quality data coming from official data sets from the state of Nuevo León in Mexico. We collected all official large-scale assessments in a data panel. We projected everything. As you can see, all these points are one of each is a school. We have 6,000 schools in the whole state. We have classified in socioeconomic status coming from decile 1 to decile 10. So 10 categories. We have official indexes for students' abilities in literacy, numeracy, and science. And all these large-scale assessments that are coming from 2021 adheres to international standards to validate the scales, establish construct validity. All this is official data coming from the state of Nuevo León. Here we have the first, just for confirming that in the left graph, you can see absolute deprivation. Absolute deprivation is totally full deprived students, the rate of totally full deprived students, and is splatted by the decile. And how is the relationship between absolute deprivation and relative deprivation? What's the meaning of relative deprivation? How deep is the deprivation of a student that is learning deprived? So you can see that the measurement is monotonous. It's quite obvious that if a group has a bigger rate of absolute deprivation, this group at the same time is deeply deprived than the lower rates. So understanding this, if we go to the right graph, you can see that this is plotted by the deciles. I mean, in the first point, decile 1 are the poorest, and decile 10 are the richest. And the richest students are less learning deprived, but so much learning deprived, and the gap is really, really high. And it's plotted also by female and males. So you can see that in general, males or boys at the schools are more learning deprived than girls. This was not the whole, it was not always been in that way, but at this moment, males are, or boys are more deprived than girls at school. So what we done? For running the model, we take 200 variables that are related with educational variables, socioeconomic, cultural habits, socio-emotional things, aspects, and all this, and we put together in a network for all these almost 24,000 students. And we splitted this in the poorest, the 20% of the poor, the quintile 1, and we put the quintile 5 that are the richest students. So we are comparing the poorest 20% of students with the 20% richest students and try to understand what is happening if both groups succeed at school. One called resilience, and the other one, the richest ones, called the privilege. So if we think about these two groups, we say, or we try to analyze, and the first thing what we can say or we can show is that there are a lot of different variables related with resilient students that are correlated at the variable level, at the meso level, within the factors that are trying to explain what's happening with resilient, and that privileged students have not a correlation with any variable in a deepest way. So when we run this, we show this, we run this, I will explain this, but try just to figure out what's happening with these two different networks. The left one is, as I told you before, the poorest ones, and in the right hand are the richest ones. So the first for both groups is that emotional well-being is the most relevant node on the whole variables for explaining what's the main difference between succeed or high achievers with not high achievers in both groups. But we have different arrangements in these networks. After this, I can come back with this. I will not explain every of these parameters. It's just for having this. This is coming in the paper. But the network layout was generated by using Giffen's Who proportional algorithm. The node colors represent the modularity classes, highlighting groups of densely interconnected factors and indicating whether the system is integrated or fragmented. We have node level size. I mean, the biggest nodes are the most representative and are measuring or identifying the factors that exert greater structural control by connecting different parts of the network. And we have used for ranking the CATS centrality, reflecting or measuring how far and strongly a factor's influence spreads through the network, giving more weight to direct connections while attenuating indirect ones. So, as we can see here, is that how the factors in the poorest students are all in the same group, in the same model, and self-control, metacognition, cognitive strategies, expectations, motivation, civic engagement, growth mindset, emotional regulation, leadership, and assertive communication and emotional awareness are still working together, bringing support for emotional being, and at the same time, emotional well-being is a bridge between this and other aspects as sense of belonging, teacher support, family support, achievement level, or environmental safety. And in other model, cooperation, bullying, school violence, satisfaction, school satisfaction are working together as separate groups. And these three groups are the most relevant factors for explaining resilient students to succeed. On the contrary, as you can see, for privileged students in this privileged students network, school satisfaction, satisfaction with interactions, bullying, school climate, school violence are irrelevant variables or factors for explaining what's happening and what's going on with privileged students that succeed at school. And even the other factors are not so much relevant for explaining accepting emotional well-being. So emotional well-being seems to be the same for both groups, but other factors are really different for explaining and for saying, okay, this might be not a personal trait, but a personal context for privileged students, but for resilient students, it seems to be more like a personal trait that the student maybe has developed across its path at the school in order to reach better results, better outcomes at school. So we have here what are the main gaps between one and another group. These bars in red are exactly what's the main difference between both groups. And you can see that actually learning practice and perceptions, school climate, educational trajectory and commitment might be and household composition might be the most relevant differences between these two groups. So going for just start to having for some conclusions, what we see with these two different networks for these two different groups is that there is a topological substitution for success. What's the meaning of this? When we compare the network topology showing that the resilient students rely on a compensatory structural mechanism rather than on resource abundance. The privileged network displays low influence variability and high clustering, indicating stable, diffuse, and redundant resources that support high performance. By contrast, the resilient network succeeds through a structural optimization and is more structurally efficient. And the other thing is that cooperation has substantially greater reach in the resilient network, making it a key coordination mechanism. So when we see these two networks, finally, across all networks, emotional well-being acts as a universal gatekeeper. Without emotional stability, maybe the flow of resources collapses in both groups, regardless of background. So this is what is one of the main findings in this project. And well, I would like to state that obviously we have some limitations. This is the first part of this research, but now we are expanding this research for making the contrast for 18 countries all around the region with by the hand of UNESCO's Laboratory of Quality of Education. And we will develop the network or the network for the whole countries, and we will split these networks using the same model, but now comparing what's happening in all these 18 countries, trying to understand if resilience in poor students might be a more personal trait than a social one, but how the privileged students are, they don't need to develop this personal trait because the social support that they have are more is more powerful than the needs for developing the personal trait. So this is what we are developing, and that's what we were looking forward to share with you. So sorry for being so fast with this, but I know we are run out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harvey, for your presentation.